Remember those Saturday mornings, the flicker of the TV screen, the sudden burst of colors, the characters that seemed larger than life? For many, it was a ritual of innocence, a doorway into magical worlds. But have you ever wondered if that innocence was carefully constructed? A facade designed not only to entertain, but to shape the way an entire generation would think, feel, and respond. What if those vibrant cartoons were more than just harmless fun? Hidden within the laughter and songs were subtle patterns, recurring symbols, and carefully chosen rituals. Behind the glowing screens, secret societies and cultural architects understood a powerful truth. To control tomorrow, they needed to reach the minds of children today. Could it be that what we thought was simple play was, in fact, a field experiment in mind control? Think about it. The same characters appearing again and again. The same melodies etched into memory. The same comforting storylines repeated until they became almost instinct. Did you notice the symbols hidden in plain sight? The subtle references, the unexplained imagery, the strange consistency across networks and studios. What you'll discover now may surprise you. Those seemingly innocent heroes might have been the very first messengers of an unseen agenda. Throughout this video, we will pull back the curtain and explore how entertainment has been used as a stage for deeper manipulations. From symbols disguised as fun, to rituals hidden in storytelling, to the possibility of hidden technology woven into the very structure of what children watched. But here's the question. How much of your own childhood memories were truly yours? And how much were designed? Before we begin unraveling this, write in the comments, "I see the hidden signs." Subscribe to join this journey because what lies ahead may challenge the way you've always seen the world. And now, let's step beyond the facade of innocence, into the shadows where the truth waits. The story hidden in plain sight does not begin with cartoons or songs, but in the cold rooms of the 1950s, a time when the Cold War wasn't just about missiles or spies. While the world stared at rockets piercing the sky, another race was unfolding in the shadows, the race for the human mind. Governments understood that controlling territories meant little without first shaping perception. This is where a new kind of weapon was born. Not bullets, not bombs, but frequencies, images, and symbols. A silent weapon capable of slipping through screens and settling into thoughts. Few dare to speak of the secret societies that watched from behind the curtain. Everyone knows the name MKUltra, the infamous CIA program. But even among the initiated, whispers travel about its hidden successor. A clandestine effort known as Project Prisma. Documents buried under decades of secrecy describe experiments with flickering lights, modulated sounds, and patterns engineered to bypass conscious resistance. The idea was terrifying in its simplicity. Use the senses as the door, the subconscious as the corridor, and the mind as the battlefield. Prisma did not fade when headlines stopped. It mutated, officially cancelled, unofficially absorbed. Private contractors and esoteric networks saw its potential, lifting it from a military project into a cultural force. Within Masonic lodges and Illuminati cells, occult rituals were no longer just symbolic. They became blueprints for programming, ancient codes mapped onto modern technology. Hidden symbols once carved into temples began appearing in the bright frames of television intros. Frequencies once tested in dark labs now pulsed through jingles and theme songs. What better delivery system than entertainment, where minds are open, defenses low, and repetition infinite? Children were the ideal test subjects. Unaware, trusting, receptive, the heroes on the screen became the carriers of forbidden knowledge encoded in harmless stories. A color, a shape, a melody repeated across shows became more than art. It became a trigger, a key turning in an invisible lock. Did you ever notice how certain characters always perform the same gesture? Or how certain patterns flashed for just a moment too brief to register? Coincidence? Or design? Project Prisma, according to scattered leaks, went further than MKUltra ever did. It blended psychological influence with hidden technology, merging scientific manipulation with the ritualistic frameworks of secret societies. This is how mind control moved from hidden labs into living rooms, an evolution so subtle that even today most dismiss it as paranoia. Yet the pattern persists. The same archetypes, the same themes, the same ritualistic cycles. The medium may have changed, cartoons, commercials, streaming platforms, but the underlying codes remain eerily consistent. Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." This phrase, simple as it seems, is an act of awakening, a line drawn between passive watching and conscious seeing. Because once you start to notice the hidden symbols, the shadows of manipulation, you cannot unsee them. But that's only the surface. Because buried even deeper than Project Prisma lies a network of influences older than the Cold War, older than television itself, an invisible lineage of techniques passed from temple walls to secret lodges to the glowing screens of our time. And at its heart, something even more unsettling waits to be uncovered. The manipulation is hidden in plain sight, woven into the fabric of everyday images. You think you're just looking at a logo, a background detail, an innocent pattern, but each mark is a fragment of a code. Secret societies have long understood that the most powerful symbols are those you don't consciously notice. They bypass debate, slip under analysis, and go straight to the subconscious. This is where mind control works best, not as an overt command, but as a quiet presence shaping perception, normalizing what would otherwise feel strange. Look closely, and you'll begin to see the pattern. The all-seeing eye, once carved on temple stones, now flickers in the opening frame of a cartoon. It appears as a badge on a character's chest, a window shape in the background, a constellation in a night sky. The Masonic checkerboard floor, black and white squares symbolizing duality and hidden power, emerges beneath the feet of animated heroes during scenes of transformation or revelation. You were told it's just style, just art direction. But what if it's something else? A ritual dressed as entertainment, an ancient code disguised as design, the unfinished pyramid, the twin pillars, the owl of Minerva, all of them signatures, each one an anchor, a psychological influence planted early to create familiarity with the symbols of occult rituals and hidden authority. In the shadows of production studios and storyboards, these marks serve as silent beacons of a dark agenda. They're not merely decorative, they're maps of influence, stitched into color palettes and shapes to train recognition, to blur the line between innocence and initiation. Have you ever wondered why your eyes are drawn to them, even for a second, before the scene moves on? These hidden symbols work like keys without obvious locks. They open pathways in the unseen architecture of thought. Pathways laid down long before you ever turned on a television. They teach without teaching. They rehearse without rehearsal. They mark territory inside the human psyche. Over time, the repetition creates a language you never agreed to learn, a silent ritual of conditioning. This is how forbidden knowledge travels without words, how conspiracies move from secret lodges into living rooms without raising alarms. Some dismiss this as coincidence, but coincidences don't repeat across decades, across studios, across continents. They don't replicate the same ancient codes in different hands unless there's a hidden power ensuring continuity. And if symbols are the keys, then what doors inside your own mind have they been quietly unlocking? Write in the comments, I see the signs. That single act is not just participation, it's awakening, a subtle declaration that you are beginning to decode what was meant to remain invisible. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you question, the pattern begins to unravel. But that's only the surface. Beyond these signatures lie even deeper layers of design. Layers that hint at a network older and stranger than the shows you grew up with. A web of influence whose full shape has yet to be revealed. The science behind this silent war is colder and more exact than any myth could suggest. When a child sits before a glowing screen, their brain does something remarkable. It slips naturally from the fast, alert beta state into slow, dreamlike alpha waves. In this state, the conscious guard weakens. The analytical mind softens. Information seeps deeper. It is the same state used in hypnosis, meditation, trance, a perfect window for programming. Secret societies didn't invent this phenomenon, but they learned how to weaponize it. Mind control ceases to be a metaphor and becomes a method. Within those alpha states, manipulation becomes invisible. They use frame flashing, images or words lasting a single frame, too quick for the conscious eye to register, but perfectly timed for the subconscious to absorb. A hidden symbol flickers between scenes. A whispered phrase hides under a laugh track. A shape flashes in a burst of light. The viewer thinks nothing happened, but the nervous system records it, like a ghost imprint burned into film. This is where hidden symbols do their real work. Occult rituals become pixel patterns. Forbidden knowledge becomes a melody stuck in your head. Underneath the soundtrack, inaudible frequencies operate. Binaural tones, known for their ability to influence emotional states, hum below the music. Fear, passivity, euphoria, all can be triggered. Children, their defenses down, become receptive to this psychological influence. Over time, the association between joy and the symbols of hidden power becomes automatic. The checkerboard floor equals safety. The all-seeing eye equals nostalgia. The pyramid equals belonging. It's Pavlov, but dressed in color and song. The manipulation is not random. It is engineered, mass neuro-linguistic programming at a scale never seen before. Anchors and triggers embedded in stories, colors and sounds tied to emotions, repeated until the link becomes unbreakable. When a child grows up seeing the same motifs in cartoons, then in brands, then in politics, the subconscious does not question. It recognizes. It trusts. This is how the dark agenda travels, not as an order shouted, but as a feeling remembered. The unseen hand does not push. It invites, it whispers. It lets you choose what you were already primed to choose. Scientific papers confirm that alpha states increase suggestibility. Advertisers use it. Hypnotherapists use it. But in the hands of networks connected to secret societies, the technique takes on another dimension. The hidden power here is not simply to sell a product, but to seed entire frameworks of belief. The manipulation becomes a ritual of its own. Occult knowledge dressed in friendly colors, ancient codes delivered through modern technology. All of it moving in the shadows of entertainment, just beneath awareness, weaving psychological influence into the softest years of life. Ask yourself, why would they invest so much precision, so much secrecy, so much science into something supposedly for kids? What message is so important that it must be planted before memory can resist? And if these methods have been refined for decades, what else hidden even deeper might already be running beneath the surface of what we see? But that's only the surface, because beyond the science lies the intent. And intent, once glimpsed, changes everything. It was never just about toys. It was never about colorful screens or catchy songs. Those were only the wrappers, the bait. Beneath them lay a deeper engineering, a blueprint for shaping tomorrow's society. Every frame, every melody, every hidden symbol worked not simply to entertain, but to instruct. And the instruction was subtle. It didn't tell children what to think. It taught them how to think, and more dangerously, how not to think. Mind control in its purest form isn't a command shouted in the open. It's an atmosphere so constant you stop noticing it. The lessons were not overt lectures, but patterns. Materialism presented as magic, power framed as belonging. The family, once the strongest barrier against manipulation, gradually portrayed as outdated, clueless, or a source of ridicule. Meanwhile, a central authority, distant and faceless, was shown as efficient, benevolent, inevitable. This is the essence of psychological influence at scale. Questioning the system became rebellion in the wrong direction, punished through ridicule in stories. Conformity, even when wrapped in bright colors, was rewarded with applause and happy endings. Slowly, invisibly, the dark agenda rewrote moral codes in the subconscious of millions. Secret societies understood the power of stories better than armies. They knew that hidden symbols and occult rituals disguised as playful motifs would build an emotional framework before logic ever formed. Forbidden knowledge would be reframed as fiction, as harmless myth, until it felt familiar. Once familiar, it becomes acceptable. Once acceptable, it becomes invisible. Ancient codes are not dead. They're alive in the cartoons, in the merchandise, in the slogans repeated without thought. This is how the unseen infiltrates the cradle, turning spectators into participants without their consent. The result? A generation raised to crave consumption as validation, to view individuality as a glitch, and to expect that the answers, the safety, the meaning, will come from a centralized global source. Critical thinking becomes a quaint memory, replaced by programmed responses delivered with a smile. What looks like entertainment is in truth a curriculum, teaching a worldview optimized for obedience. This is not about one show or one brand. It's a lattice of influence stretching across decades and industries, a conspiracy woven so tightly, it feels like culture itself. This is the foundation for a world that has already begun to emerge. A place where you can be tracked not only by your actions, but by your assumptions, where the hidden power does not need to control you directly, because you already think in the lanes it has prepared. The citizens of tomorrow are being built today, one broadcast at a time, their values curated like code. The question isn't whether secret societies are planning a future. The question is how much of that future is already installed inside you, like a program waiting for its trigger. And yet, even in this web, there are anomalies. People who start to notice the repetition, the symbols, the odd comfort of the patterns. People who feel the awakening, who whisper, "I will not be controlled," under their breath. Because if the invisible curriculum can shape, perhaps it can also be disrupted. But how? How do you unlearn a lesson taught before you could read, before you could question? What happens when the hidden symbols of childhood meet the forbidden knowledge of adulthood? But that's only the surface, because beyond the agenda lies the architecture itself. Who built it, why it endures, and what may still be concealed behind the next layer of the facade. The good news is as simple as it is unsettling. The most powerful weapon they had was never their hidden symbols or their occult rituals. It was secrecy. Once the wires are visible, the puppet can no longer dance unseen. Awareness begins to cut through the shadows, dissolving the psychological influence that once felt like air itself. This is not about fear, it's about awakening. It's about moving from passive watching to active seeing, from unconscious absorption to deliberate questioning. Mind control, no matter how subtle, cannot hold where light and analysis flood the unseen corners. This is why the hidden power fears revelation more than resistance. Conspiracies thrive in darkness, in repetition, in patterns no one names. The moment you give a pattern a name, it becomes obvious. It loses its magic. Forbidden knowledge ceases to be forbidden the moment it's spoken aloud, and the ancient codes lose their grip the moment they're decoded. The dark agenda depends on your eyes being open but unfocused. The instant they focus, even for a moment, the illusion falters. And yet, it is not enough to simply notice. Noticing must be followed by thinking, by teaching, by breaking the chain of passive transmission. Children who learn to question hidden symbols are not immune, but they are less susceptible. A mind trained to look beneath the surface cannot be lulled by surface alone. The same images, the same rituals, the same comforting narratives still appear, but their power diminishes when you name them. The secret societies rely on a generational silence, on parents who saw but never spoke, on viewers who felt but never analyzed. When that silence breaks, the spell weakens. The unseen becomes visible, and the visible becomes just a tool, not a trap. This is not a call to paranoia, but to clarity. Patterns can be decoded, occult rituals can be recognized, ancient codes can be read as history rather than destiny. Even the most sophisticated manipulation becomes brittle when its methods are exposed. Truth is a solvent. Revelations are light. The awakening you feel now is not a final destination, but a beginning. A threshold where forbidden knowledge turns into understanding and hidden power loses its edge. When you start to watch not only with your eyes but with your mind, you stop being a receptor and start being an observer. You notice how stories are built, how symbols recur, how emotions are guided. You start teaching your children to do the same, to question, to see, to map the invisible architecture that others take for granted. The dark agenda depends on obedience installed in infancy, but it collapses when curiosity and analysis spread like a counter-virus. This is not a fight of strength but of sight, and yet, as you step back and look at the lattice you've been tracing, you may begin to feel something even stranger. Because when one web is revealed, another often appears behind it, faint but present, stretching further than you thought possible. If this was only the first layer, what structures might be hiding behind the next veil? What forces have remained completely unseen? Because our attention has only now reached this point. But that's only the surface. Beyond this awakening lies another landscape entirely, one where the veil itself is only the first clue to something far more intricate, waiting for the moment you finally dare to look. Now that the threads have begun to reveal themselves, you are no longer just a passive witness. You're part of a quiet circle of minds waking up together. Knowledge like this is not mere curiosity. It's a map, a shield, a way of stepping outside the invisible currents of manipulation. If you feel the pull of these hidden truths, subscribe and stay close to this space. Every new revelation we uncover is another piece of the puzzle they hoped you'd never see. Leave a mark below to show you've crossed this threshold. Right. I see the hidden truth, or no one will control my mind. Your words become a signal to others searching in the shadows. And if this message resonated with you, give this video a like. A quiet way of amplifying the light inside the dark agenda's fog. Ahead lies another layer, another door waiting to be unlocked. Watch the next chapter of this journey and follow the trail beyond the veil. Because the deeper you go, the more the unseen begins to take shape.